Share screen and play. All right. Thanks for joining us today, everyone. And today we're going to go over the top reasons agents lose their license. So,
As
Deb
of
and
this year, that's why
I,
I put it in there.
yeah,
This is
up
recent.
top. This is recent stuff,
Yeah.
recent things. And if I had a nickel for every time I heard over my career in YouTube, Deb probably is like, well, I never knew this. And I always say, well, this is how you have to do it. This is the legal way of doing things and what you can't do. And because someone never got caught or or no one corrected them, I get that a lot.
Yeah.
So, so we're going to go through a lot of things. Again, it's kind of like I use the analogy, if you go through a red light and there's no police there, you don't get in trouble. But we're going to go over some things that you got to be very aware of. So you're not the one, by accident, because sometimes agents are duped by accident. They just don't know. They just don't know you're
Yeah.
not supposed to do this or that. And we're going to go over some of those. So, and of course, reach out to us anytime and we'll let you know what you should and should not do. So,
Yeah.
and then also some of the times we're going to go over some stuff that I'm assuming we're going to go over some stuff that just keeps you out of trouble. Just like, it's a gray area, not really gray, you don't want to run, but we want to protect you and avoiding certain things, to keep you safe. So, all right, Deb.
Yeah, that's a perfect way to put it because, especially agents who work in the office or work with our office with Homestar, they know that if they're getting a call from me or Julia or even Adam sometimes, and occasionally it's Tony or Brenda, but it's mostly me or Julia, and we're saying, "Hey, we need such and such, or you need to fix this or that or whatever." It's because we care and we want to keep you out of trouble. So we're not picking on anybody. We want you to do it the correct way because we have seen the repercussions of not having it done the correct way. So that's
Exactly.
why we tell you stuff. Number five, and this came from the legal and legislative update 2 weeks ago from OAR. So this is where all this came from. The
Mhm.
number five topic was brokerage management issues. And you may think, well, that has nothing to do with me, but it does because what this is saying is the brokerage got in trouble because the agents weren't doing something correct.
Mhm.
So the first one was permitting agents to conduct property management for others outside of the brokerage. So anyone who works with Homestar knows, because we tell them all the time, that you can property manage your own properties, right? So if you want to be an investor and have multiple properties and such, you're allowed to do that, right? But you cannot sublet your services to another person to property manage their properties. All that would have to go through the brokerage, and we don't do that type of thing. Now,
Right.
if you work for an apartment complex and you're a paid employee, that is also acceptable, is it not, Tony?
Yeah, as long as you're a paid employee of the company or owner of the property or properties and you're W-2'd.
There you go. I was just going to say.
You have to be W-2'd. But I always just jump into this. Anytime agents ask, "Oh, I got someone with property wants me to do some property management," it's not worth the time. Don't do it. Just don't do it. It's not, even if you're legally allowed to do it, don't do it. That's why we don't do it as a company. Two, there's property management companies that we could refer them to that are experts at this and are licensed and insured, and they know what they're doing. And then the third thing I always tell agents, the reason why any particular owner is asking you to do it is because they want you to do it cheaper because they've called
Yeah,
other property management companies and they don't like the cost. So
yeah.
they always go back to the realtor because they're going to be the cheaper option. So I just tell people, you could probably get them off your back. Tell them you'll charge them 20% of the monthly rent and then they'll go away.
That's a good
A
one.
thousand
Right.
dollars a month, I'll take $2,000, $200 a month to manage your property. They go, I'm not doing it. They just want you to do it for free. on that. But also there's a fine line of when you're leasing properties out and helping people, not talking to the tenants, but getting people in and out when you have an active listing. So there's a fine line of that. You're not, talking to tenants, you're just helping people get in and out. So we have a lot of agents that do that, but talk to Debbie and I when you have
Yeah.
a listing for a rental of an investor and they're out of town or out of country and you need in and out stuff.
Yeah.
We'll
Yeah. Because we can tell you what you can legally do and what you can't.
good.
So,
Well, go ahead.
okay. Unlicensed individuals acting as a licensed person. So, this would be like your assistant, right? Or maybe you hire your daughter or you hire your significant other to help you with paperwork and such like that. There's nothing wrong with that either. You're allowed to have assistants, right? But
Mhm.
you got to make sure that they are not speaking about business, right? That they're just doing like menial tasks and stuff. Even if they know, because they have been sitting next to you forever and a day and they hear everything about your listing or everything about the sale and things like that, they are not allowed to speak about anything. So you got to be careful of that. Also, you do need to let the office know if you do have a personal assistant, because we need to know who's involved in all of our stuff. And
Yeah,
all
there's
you got to
one.
do is just let us know. I'll send you over the information about having an assistant, the do's and don'ts that they want and stuff like that. But we do
Yeah,
have to have a record of who's
the one,
being involved.
the one easy way I tell agents how when they have like some unlicensed person helping them is that you could avoid everything by just saying your clients should never know who they are and that you even have an assistant. There you go. Done. They should never
Oh,
get a call
there
from
you
them.
go.
They should never get an email from them or a text message from them because it can be construed as acting as an agent. Yeah, there's a fine line of asking for, paperwork or something like that. But I say, don't even get involved. Again, there's stuff that they can do, but I say, I'm trying to keep you extra safe. Their assistant is to help you. Like they could go on to that, you log into the MLS as your assistant and make appointments for you. Your client has no idea they are making the appointments. They're handling paperwork between you and the mortgage company, you and the title company. They can do that because they're not the public. They're other professionals. So they could talk to mortgage companies, they could talk to title companies, they can't talk to the general public. So if you follow that easy kind of things, like my client doesn't even know I have an assistant, then you're going to be fine with that. If that,
That's a great way to put it. Excellent way to put it,
yeah,
actually.
because if there's a complaint and they go, well, I talked to this person or I emailed this person, then it probably is not the way they should have been doing business as an unlicensed person. So,
Right.
uh,
Illegal dual agency. So there is such a thing as illegal dual agency, believe it or not. And what they're referring to really is that person, are you a dual agent because they're your client, or are you acting as a dual agent because they just came over to you and they're a customer? And the most important point of this, and it might be brought up again closer to the top, is agents who are selling their own properties
yeah, right.
and they're the only agent involved. They dwelled on this. We had like a 3-hour class and they dwelled on this multiple times. Okay. This update.
Yeah,
There are a lot of agents who sell their own properties, and there's nothing wrong with that, but you've got to be careful when you're the only agent involved.
yeah, I mean, the simple thing I always say to this, the agents, so many of them, even been in the business 30 years plus, some of them, they said they just because there's not another agent, they just assume they have to be a dual agent and on that. So I always say the lack of another agent doesn't mean you're automatically a dual agent.
Correct.
So,
Yeah, it's that relationship part.
it,
Do you
it-
have one or do you not? So,
right, right. So
and please reach out to us. We'd be happy to go over,
yeah,
specific instances with you if you like.
yeah,
I
specific.
talk to people all the time about this because, especially now when we now have buyer agency agreements and stuff, it's a little bit easier for people to understand the difference between the two.
Yeah,
Okay,
I guess a
so
simple way to think of this is that if you have a listing and a buyer's calling you, check with Debbie or I before you do anything.
yeah,
It doesn't have any. If you have a buyer and under buyer agreement, they want to go see a for sale by owner and there's no other agent or one of these, I leave this, even if it's a very, very discount company that has limited service, you still got to watch because they want you to talk to the seller directly. Talk to Debbie or I first and we'll
yes,
give you some tips before you get deep into it. So, but
yes.
go ahead.
Salespersons acting as management level licensees, and you might all think, well, I don't do that. Do you or do you not? See, it's my job as a manager to train people, right? Is it your job as an agent to train another agent, though? No.
Right.
So there's a fine line with that too. So there's nothing wrong with people helping others. I hear this quite often, actually, from especially new agents that we get over. Oh, well, my mentor is from such and such company, and they told me to do this, that, and the other. If you're going to have a mentor, you should have a mentor from the same brokerage that you belong to, right? Because then there's more control for people like us, right? Me and Brenda and Tony and Julia, we all have to know what people are doing, right? So
Right.
there's nothing wrong with having mentors. There's nothing wrong with having partners in the business, and there's nothing wrong with people wanting to do teams. That is not the same as management level licensee. And we just recently learned about something special, didn't we?
Right.
That even if you're an associate broker, you are not a management level licensee. That is a totally different thing. So be careful of
So,
what you're talking about and always reach out to us first.
yeah, no, I mean, I could honestly say that I feel like this topic, we as a company do the best than any other company,
Yeah,
any
yeah,
major company out there, because we fall. I see a lot of companies that have a lot of teams that have team leaders that call themselves team leaders that are giving their team advice and how to do things. And I think that's why this was probably a big topic during that class because a lot of people are listening to other people. So I use this in recruiting and I use this to when I talk to our agents, I'm like, oh, I got this deal going on with the team leader. And the team leader's getting involved, and and sometimes I haven't done it in a couple months, but have checked, and I see they're not a management level license. They shouldn't be giving their agent legal advice.
yep,
So anything major, it's supposed to be a management level license, which is Debbie, Julia, Brenda, or myself as the broker. So
yep.
all right, we'll go next. Four.
Okay. Uh, Number four is about contract issues. So failure to ensure earnest money was deposited. I have to tell you guys, this is always on the list.
Yes.
Always on the list. It's a big one,
Yeah.
because it is our responsibility as buyer's agents to make sure that the buyer turns their money in, or at least we have paperwork or a paper trail, even if it's text messages and emails, showing that we tried to get them to turn the earnest money in. Okay. There are a lot of title companies that have portals now, so it's easier to get this done. But you, as
Mhm.
the licensee, does get in trouble if they don't turn that in. So you've got to be diligent in your um, reminders with the buyer to get that in within your 3 day period on your contract.
Yeah, and there's a fine line with that. Like I've some agents like, oh, I have to physically make sure they deposit earnest money. Like, no, you have to keep on telling them, and you should have a record of texts or emails or call logs or something that you told the buyer, hey, make sure you do this, make sure you do this, and then check to make sure it got to the title company. And if they didn't, it's simple. If you didn't, you just have to notify the listing agent that it wasn't according to the contract, wasn't deposited right, and you checked on it. You don't have to physically make sure if the buyer doesn't do it, but you have to show that you've told the buyer or reminded the buyer, and also you let the other side know that if it was or was not. It's simple as that, but some
Yeah.
agents just think, oh my God, what happens if they I can't? How do I force them? Like, no, your job isn't to force them to make sure that they do it, like physically do it if they don't, but you have to follow it, make sure it does or does not happen and let everybody know.
Yeah. And if they don't turn it in that time period, you do need to let the other side know that it's
Yeah,
not
you
there.
have to, right?
Yeah. Okay. Failure to inform client that contract terms were contrary to the client's intent. So very important that you're reading your purchase agreements, especially when there are written things in there. So if people add stuff. And also, this was really geared towards that general home inspection and what people were asking for versus what they got in a repair. Um, as far as repairs go, I always tell everybody that when you're asking for repairs, follow it up with a little snippet of what the actual inspector was saying. So there is no discrepancy on that, and then they can read it. The buyer can read it, the seller can read it, both people can read it, so there is no discrepancy on what's being asked. That's kind of where they were going with that one. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's the inspection and repairs are the top problems after closing. So, little tidbit that I always give out when it's our buyer and there's repairs, if it's allowed by the lender, I just allow they have the seller hold money or give money to the buyer to do after closing, so the buyer could be in control of it.
Hmm?
I always tell our buyer, well, I like the house to be perfect when I walk in and I don't want to have to do anything. Well, what do you think the seller is going to do? They're going to do it the cheapest way possible. So
Of
why
course.
would you want, well, I'm gonna, this. And then there's always an argument like, who did the work, you know? So to talk to Debbie or myself before, if you have a buyer or listing, because sometimes there are listings, and you have a lot of repairs or going back and forth about repairs, call us because again, we want to help protect you and our clients, either the buyer or seller. Same with the seller. I always say the same thing. Just try to give the buyer the money to do these things if we can, so that you don't have to worry about it afterwards if whoever did the work didn't do it right, or they wanted it some other way, or did a bad job painting something.
Yeah, yeah.
It's not, no, and it's always, those are the problems. So I'm assuming that's what we're talking about.
Yeah, pretty much that's what they were going over. So, knowingly stated a false reason on the notice of termination. So, your mutual release for a listing or for a sale. You can't lie about this, guys, because it will come out, especially if
Yeah.
somebody's suing somebody else over that earnest money, you know,
Right.
or if the seller says that they're going to they want to be released from us because they want to go list with another company, and then they don't list with another company and they sell it for sale by owner, depending on what your listing agreement says, that's a violation, and you could go back on them for that. So don't falsify things is the bottom line for that. Put the real reasons on things, and then you won't get into trouble.
That's right.
Failed to include inducements in the contract. Now, we did delve into this a little bit more because I wanted to make sure, and they had a lot of questions from people about this. This is not, an inducement for the contract of the buyer agent lowering their commission and accepting 2% instead of 3%. That's not what that is, because that is usually shown on your buyer broker compensation agreement. So everybody can already see that. So that's not what they're talking about. They're talking about other inducements. So if the buyer agent gives, or the listing agent even gives back part of their commission because they need to have a radon mitigation system put in, and the seller doesn't want to do that. Had to do this a few years ago. I paid for half of the system because radon was found. The only way to sell the house was to put the system in. So I
Mhm.
paid for half of it out of my commission because the seller didn't want to do it. That's an
Right.
inducement. Everyone had to see that. It changed the contract and sign off on that fact. So if things like that are going on, it's okay. We can do it, but we got to have everybody sign it so that they all see it. It's that transparency thing, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Uh, all right. So section number 3 was conduct of licensees. Again, this comes all the time, not cooperating with division during investigations. When you're being investigated, this is a serious thing. Even if you did absolutely nothing wrong, you need to cooperate with that division so that you can clear your name. They get really annoyed when they can't get licensees to turn over paperwork and things like that. So make sure you are cooperating fully with the division if they're asking you for things.
Yep.
Photos of interior without the owner's consent. And I go over this a lot with our agents in our training. It is not allowed for people to be walking through a showing, taking pictures of the person's house and their things, or videoing that house. This is not allowed. Unfortunately, things got a little lax during COVID with video showings and such like that. That was not what the intent was with those. That was just to be something that could happen during COVID when there was a lot of lockdowns and things. And those were supposed to be monitored by the agents. It is not okay for people to be going through and taking pictures or videos of someone else's house. Now, if the owner gives you consent to do a video showing and record it, make sure you're telling them that they want to record it because you can do a FaceTime as
Right.
long as it's not recorded, right?
Well, yes, I kind of think that, but I still think you should, because get consent. So if you're going to
Well,
do
right.
anything,
I meant
and
with
most
consent.
most
Sorry.
listing agents or sellers are going to be okay with like a video, like live video. But if you're taking a bunch of photos, I don't think many sellers are going to want you to take a photo or videos and record it. But I think if you say, "Hey, I'm going to walk through with FaceTime live and show my client," that's not going to be recorded. I don't think anybody will have a problem with that. But you should always ask and just let
Yeah.
them know you're doing that. Because,
Yeah.
example, you go there and you're doing that, and the seller happens to be home, yeah, they're gonna be upset. Hey, I mean, not would haven't gotten one of these calls in a while, but I've been over the years, I've gotten calls from complaints from listing agents because of what they heard or saw on the Ring doorbell camera that they had.
Yeah.
So watch what you say and what you do because you're out, with the Ring doorbells and things. Not no one did anything illegal or wrong, but they said some things, disparaging comments about the house or something. Made a comment, nothing terrible, but it just might hurt your buyer because they were on the Ring doorbell cam and they heard them say something, not kind about the house or the yard or something.
Or
So.
even the people. And that was a great segue into that one because that's exactly what that means. It's those people that are recording, which they're not supposed to record. We know that, but sellers do it anyhow. They're not going to disable their Ring doorbell or their Google Home device, even though they're not supposed to be listening. They do. And um, it was like June, I think, was the last time this came up, and actually came from the listing side and told me, that our agent needed to be disciplined because of the things that they were saying about the house and about the seller when they were doing their final walkthrough. And that it was unprofessional. And I'm like, were you there? Was she talking to you? And she said, no, they heard it
Right.
on the ring,
Right.
the audio thing. And it's like, well, you're not supposed to be listening to that. And I did actually speak to our agent. It was not anything that was really that bad, but the house was trashed and they were going to be closing in 2 days. So they were very concerned about it. And that's what they were talking about. Uh, but the also disparaging comments that they were speaking about was things on social media.
Hmm.
So don't dish another agent on social media or another brokerage or a buyer or a seller. Don't put out snips and clips of conversations and stuff like that. That's all private, y'all. You got to be quiet about that stuff,
Hmm.
and you don't want to be talking bad about other brokerages or other agents either, because, you know, it's just not cool. We all have to play in the same sandbox. So if you don't happen to agree with the way that someone else does things and stuff like that,
Hmm.
that's fine. You don't have to. But don't speak derogatory to someone because you don't know who you're talking to. They
Right.
might be a relative and you just didn't even know that.
Right.
So be
Exactly.
very careful about that. The other thing that they were talking about was felony convictions. We do know that people, people are people, and sometimes you get into trouble, and you do need to make sure that you're letting the brokerage know and that you're letting the division know as soon as you do get into trouble. So, that's something that we do have to, immediately disclose to everybody. Um,
Well,
oh, here we go. Property management again. See, I told you it was going to come back up.
yeah, obviously we kind of comes back up, but we don't do it, so you don't have to worry about it. We kind of went over that.
Yeah, it's
So
at
we're
the top
good.
of the list, right? So we did talk about that though. Agency documents and issues. Uh, we see this on a daily. So
Right, yes.
unfortunately, it's a bad one. Failure to provide consumer guide to agency and or agency disclosure statement in a timely manner. So when do you give the consumer guide to anybody, Tony?
As soon as you start, I say as soon as you start talking to them about real estate, emailing it to them, but definitely on the first showing.
Yeah, first showing. And if it's a listing, you're going to give it to them when you first start
Hmm.
talking to them about selling their house. Very easy.
But
It just
again,
says, here, this is what it's like to work with
right.
Homestar.
But nowadays with more things being paperless, a lot of times things are being done. You gotta do it at the beginning. So you should be doing it before, and having I don't know if you'll bring this up, but having a consumer guide agency signed and dated the same date as the purchase agreement shouldn't be that way.
Right.
You should have it signed when you start looking for houses on your buyers. So knock on wood, you'll never get audited or be a problem, but they're going to say, how did show them 20 houses and then the consumer guide was given at the time of purchase. So we see that a lot, but and hopefully that never, but you're supposed to be before you start showing them. So
Yeah. And with that consumer guide, you should be talking about your buyer agency agreement in the state of Ohio too, which they also brought up. So making sure that's being signed before you show somebody a home. Um,
yep,
if you're not sure, just give me a call, give Tony a
yep,
call. We'll go over all that stuff with you, but really immediately when you start talking to people. Failure to indicate listing property owned by a real estate licensee. This baffles my brain. This is
right.
license law, y'all. License law, and why do you care? Put it on your documents.
All
Put
right.
it on the purchase agreement. Don't there when you don't disclose that you're a licensed real estate agent that owns that property, it looks like you're hiding stuff. And that's when people start digging into things and they start making mountains out of molehills and all of that jazz. If you are just throwing it out there everywhere on every document, you're not hiding anything, right?
Right.
And it's license law. So let's follow the law and do it correctly, right? So even if you're owning in an LLC, if you have a partner, you have to disclose that. You don't have to tell people, uh, this is my husband's property. You just have to say you're
Right.
related, right? You don't
Right.
have to tell people that I have 5 partners in this partnership. You don't have to tell them that. Just you have a financial interest in the property. You just have to disclose that. It's the one thing that people chew on and until they can figure out how to sue somebody with.
Right.
So let's not let them do that. Let's keep you guys out of trouble, right?
That's it.
Failure to obtain signatures on the agency documents. So that includes your consumer guide, your buyer broker, your agency disclosure, who represents who. Uh, Now, it with that agency disclosure of who represents who, anyone who has done anything with a REO or also with a builder, a lot of times they don't want to sign that document. I don't know why, but they just don't. Okay. You do need to put something on that signature line that tells everybody who audits that file that you at least tried. So seller refused to sign is something that you put on there, but don't put it on there if you never gave it to them. Okay.
Right.
So we don't want to be falsifying things. Representing another party while being principal in the transaction. Kind of touched on this one too.
Right.
Agent owned
You can't, right. You can't
properties.
represent the buyer when you're on your own property.
No, no, you're
Uh,
never not going to be a dual agent at all, right? So, did I? Uh-oh,
What?
where's the number one?
That was number one.
Oh, that was number one.
We went
We
through them
went through that really
fast.
quickly.
Right.
Yeah. Okay, this one I thought was really cute. It's summertime. Everybody does cookouts and stuff like that. So you can actually buy this little s'more kit for 18 bucks, right? So I thought this was adorable. You can make your
Yeah.
own little thing. Um, and you can give these out to people or,
Yeah. I
door
would say
knocking,
you
give it to
definitely have to
people.
give them out to people. Can't leave them on their front porch or something.
It'll melt.
Melt,
Yeah.
yeah. That.
Yeah,
So
but if you're like going to a family event, you can tie up each individual
right,
little thing and have
exactly.
that sitting on the table. They're going to pick them up and eat them, right?
That's
So,
right.
all right, I finally got some more information on some CEUs coming
Some
here, and I
more.
through some
See,
classes in
did
for
you see hear
Century
what you
21.
said? You said some more.
Some more,
More some
yeah,
more CE
some
classes.
more
Go
CE classes. Yeah.
ahead.
Hash and Mike are going to be doing some core classes in the next few months. So we got core law coming up on the 16th. Today was civil rights because we were going to do this last week, but we both got
Yeah.
inundated with things, so we couldn't. September 4th, why agents need to know how mortgages are made with Hash. October 2nd is scary home repairs that lead to delays that can lead to lawsuits. So that should be a real good one with Hash.
Yeah.
I know Mike's got some more classes that he just sent to me too. That'll be on the next one. But you can always go to um, ohioce.net to see what
Yep.
Hash's schedule is. And you can always go to the free ohioce.com up there to see what all the classes are that we
You
have.
got it.
The Century 21 University is doing Pipeline to Gold Mine on the 11th. That's just a 1 hour class. They're just going to give you some tidbits there. The Pricing Confidence class, they usually do that about once a month. It's a 3-day class because it's 3 modules.
Mhm.
Anyone who's working with Century 21 Homestar, this is on your list to do. So I'm
Mhm.
reminding you, this month's session is from 8:11 to 8:13. I have so many of you guys who are always calling me saying, "Can you help me with this? So because I gotta go do a listing and da, 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 and I don't know if this is a good price for my buyer." And I am happy to help, and so is Tony. You will get more confidence if you take these classes.
That's
Okay.
right.
So
You got
yes,
it.
we're always happy to help you with this, but you need to boost your own confidence because if I do the CMA for you or Tony does it, how does that help you?
Exactly.
Okay. You won't even know what it's where the numbers came from. So you need to do this on your own. Of course, I teach it to you and we will help you, but take the class. It's a good one,
Right. That's it.
you know?
Well, good. I'll stop sharing there. Well, thanks for joining us, everyone. And remember, reach out to Debbie or myself anytime. Talk to Tony.net or talk to Deb.net with the number 2
Yeah.
in there. So that's it. Well, have a great day and we'll hope to talk to many of you soon. Bye bye.
Bye.